I kind of want to watch this video because it keeps coming up and I've never seen it. And I know it's old,
Of November 19th, 2012. RuneScape players across the world are nestled in their beds, anxiously awaiting the next morning. You see, tomorrow, the most polarizing update in RuneScape history is slated to be released. It's called the Evolution of Combat, or EOC for short. The goal of this update is to fundamentally overhaul the combat and mechanics of RuneScape, bringing it more in line with modern MMOs, with action bars, with abilities, cooldowns, something that RuneScape has never had. They don't know it yet, but this is going to be the downfall of one of the oldest and greatest MMOs of all time. The next morning, EOC is launched, and in the span of 1 week, one single week, over 1 million active paying members are lost. The player count slowly rises again, but even at its peak, the player count decreased by 400,000, and from there, it continued to decrease. The writing was on the wall here. RuneScape's end was near. That was 12 years ago, and as you can probably tell from the title, that didn't happen. RuneScape did not die. In fact, quite the opposite, because currently, RuneScape is more popular than it's ever been. We are at the highest concurrent player count of all time. So what the hell happened? Let's go back to EOC for a second. I'm bringing up EOC because that update did mark the near death of the game, but through a series of very good decisions and quite a bit of work, the developers of the game Jagex Studios managed to save RuneScape. And we're going to talk about why and how they were able to do that, because the modern gaming industry, if you haven't noticed, is in a bit of a rut right now. I think a lot of companies can and should take note of how Jagex has handled this and how they've made their game irreplaceable. Like, somehow this game is more popular than it was 20 years ago. When does that ever happen? Now, this might be the most important thing that I say for this entire video, so pay close attention. The Bush administration is not innocent. I was there the morning of Tuesday, so kidding. What I absolutely have to drive home, though, is that RuneScape is not a game for everyone. And I don't think it should be, because that is a strength that so many modern games are afraid of leaning into. And if that confuses you, don't worry, because we're gonna talk all about that. But first, let's do a little history lesson. So RuneScape was released on January 4th, 2001. That makes this game nearly 24 years old. That is one of the longest running MMOs in history. And to put it in perspective, okay, that is older than most of Leonardo DiCaprio's girlfriends, and that is so old that Dr. Disrespect won't even message it. Is it too late to make that joke? Is that moment past? So what's the secret to RuneScape's success here? It has not been a smooth road, right? But great games are seldom made easily. EOC was not actually the only time this game has had a really big downswing as well. So for the non-RuneScape players here, I'm gonna give you guys a bit of a timeline because it gets pretty confusing. So RuneScape Classic was released in 2001, and then came RuneScape 2 in 2004. Now this is the game that we all played as kids. This is the game that everybody recognizes. The dreaded EOC that we talked about happened in 2012, and then Jagex, seeing the utter destruction that caused for their game, did something that was completely unprecedented. I don't think any developer had ever done this, or maybe still even has done it. They released a poll to the players asking if we wanted legacy servers, essentially a reboot of how the game was before EOC. They straight up admitted, like, hey, nobody likes this. Should we just run this back? You guys just want to try again? Jagex said that if 50,000 players were interested, they would do it. 50,000. 450,000 people signed that petition. Nearly 10 times the requirement. And they did it. They released old school RuneScape in 2000.
Guys, imagine you already have, like, you're running a business and it's running very, very well. And you're like, let's change everything. Let's give our customers something that they didn't ask for. Let's change the product completely that they love. And let's just hit them with something different. That's what happened. Why would they think that's a good idea?
2013. Now, Old School started as a snapshot of the game as it was in
So
2007.
Blizzard, exactly.
And this is like the absolute peak. This is when we all played it as kids. That's when I played it. I'm assuming that's when most of you played it. But from that point, they then branched off. They made new content, new bosses, new quests. It did not follow
2012 Jagex is just Blizzard. Mind blown.
the same path. And most importantly, there was no EOC. The simple mechanics of RuneScape, which is honestly what attracted everyone in the first place over all the other MMOs, those were here to stay. Now, Old School RuneScape is the game that everybody plays now. This is the one we're talking about. That EOC version we talked about, that became RuneScape 3, which is now a microtransaction-filled bastard MMO, but we're also going to talk about that.
Look, I don't like to talk trash about anything really, except Showbeck, but I can't even look at RuneScape 3. I can't even like look at it. It doesn't. I hate looking at it. I'm not really sure why.
We're far past the intro here, but I'm going to introduce myself anyway. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tasty Life. Welcome to the channel. Strap in because this is going to be a long one. Galanor really is a beautiful world when you take the time to look at the detail, the love, the fantasy, hand woven into this game by the developer. Oop, what? Why did my Oculus orb turn off? Oh my God, red alert. I'm being hacked by the North Koreans. That's why that picture of Foe is on my desktop. I'm kidding, but if you take your online security seriously like I do, you have no excuse to not be using a VPN.
All right,
which is why today's video is sponsored by ExpressVPN. With all the companies that track our data, all the ways that people can gain access to our personal information, safety has never been more important. All those apps asking us if we want our data tracked and we click no, you think that works? All of a sudden, these giant tech companies are our Little Red Riding Hood? Or the Three Little Piggies? I don't remember the story. But you get the gist. They're not. ExpressVPN hides your IP so that data brokers cannot get their hands on it. Safety first. ExpressVPN will keep you safe from hackers and third parties trying to monitor your data by encrypting and rerouting 100%.
Guys, I've been thinking about getting a VPN to play from Malta to see if I can get better RNG on my loot. Because that's where Joker's from. And for some reason, his client is getting way better loot luck. And I think that might be the difference in getting a BOFA and not getting one, is if we could VPN into Malta and then play for a day from there, we should be able to get the BOFA, then we can come back.
Of your online browsing activity. Thank you, ExpressVPN, for sponsoring this video. There are a few things that make RuneScape very unique in the landscape of MMOs, and I'd actually argue that RuneScape is the single most distinctive and recognizable game in the genre. From the wildly nostalgic music, the famous low-poly art style, and its most notorious aspect, the blindingly long grinds. Everybody knows RuneScape. In fact, I'd wager most of the people watching this actively play because you're subscribed to me. Because
the long grinds are actually a good thing. At the end of the day, every day, you're going to be disappointed that you didn't get what you wanted. But the next day when you wake up, you're going to be glad that you have something to go for. And so the long grinds, it's a love-hate thing, but ultimately it's better because getting everything in the game is actually bad because then you quit. So what we all want is a game that we like that we never beat. So the long grinds are great.
I'm a RuneScape channel, but if you are not though, please subscribe so I can reach 100K and make my full-time pivot into a Wii bowling YouTuber. Thank you. So let's talk about the secret of their success here. There's a few general sections, but the first and indisputably most important is the immensely strong identity of RuneScape. We know what we are, and we're not willing to sacrifice that to gain mainstream appeal. Earlier, I said that RuneScape is not a game for everybody, but that's a good thing, so let me explain why. In an era where a majority of titles...
It's a great thing, trust me. If your game is not for everyone, it's a great thing. Otherwise, you end up like World of Warcraft, trying to appeal to everybody, and you fail anyway. So just appeal to a niche group of people who are artistic AF.
right now are pushed out by big AAA studios with massive corporations funding them. The goal of modern game development is simply make the most money possible in the shortest amount of time. Quite literally, number go up good, which I recognize the irony of as a RuneScape player. And to clarify, I'm not a complete idiot. I know that it's always been a business and games have always had the goal of making money. It's just that the route that they've taken to get there has changed so drastically over the years. There used to be a really big sense of passion and excitement that you could feel from developers, and to be fair, it is still there, but now they're bound by the massive chains of corporatism. It's like if you were a birthday clown and the dad who hired you for his son's birthday was like pointing a gun at you the whole time, like, my kid better like this. And also, you make $35,000 a year. The dad is Microsoft in this analogy. Anyway, games used to be made with the goal of making money. Yes, of course. But the only way they could do that was by making a good game with a unique identity that could set itself apart from the crowd. It had to offer a well-crafted experience that you could not get in any other game. We didn't have patches and DLC. Games had to work out of the box. Games used to come in boxes. I sound like such a fucking boomer right now, dude. The point is that longevity was not only very important, but...
Fuck, are we old if we ever bought a game from a box? Oh no. Guys, when I was in elementary school, we had floppy disks. And we had colored IMAX. Oh my God, bro.
Required for sales. And that was only attainable via a good game. I'm sure you guys can remember being in school and hearing your friends talk about a game. You'd go home and beg your mom to take you to GameStop. You could finally join in with your friends, dude. You'd cradle it on the way home. You'd read the back of the box.
Oh, dude, we were the best generation. I literally grew up in the best generation. These kids will never have to wait in line at GameStop. They will never get the box. They will never get to have that experience, man. Waiting in line at GameStop for an MMO release was like peak.
Read the manual because you couldn't play it yet because you're not home and there's traffic because some idiot plowed through a red light into 3 cars and killed somebody. So now you have to wait an extra 30 minutes to play Skyrim. Still pissed about that. Now, naturally, when a game does well, the goal for any studio would be for their next game to sell more copies, make more money. To do that, they needed more players to buy their games, so ergo, they had to appeal to a wider audience. Pretty simple chain of logic here. So in an effort to do that, studios started changing things about their games that, while giving their games a distinct identity and potentially fostering a sense of community among those who play it, might have also alienated a larger portion of the market. Take a game like Morrowind. I know it's dated now, like no one's gonna argue that. Absolutely, it looks terrible. But the RPG experience at the time was completely unparalleled. You'd have to listen to dialogue. You'd have to read dialogue. You'd have to explore towns. You'd have to find clues to progress your quest. It was such an immersive experience. Just talk to anybody who started Elder Scrolls with Morrowind. Yeah. It's like a CrossFitter and a vegan had a baby. They don't shut up, but it comes from a place of genuine passion. No hate, unless you're a CrossFitter. The thing is though, not everybody liked games like that. You know, sometimes it was frustrating. You could get stuck, you could mess up your game permanently. So with the best of intentions, developers started doing simple things like...
Nah, that's me with Star Wars Galaxies, guys. Star Wars Galaxies is the best game ever. It'll never be topped in my imagination. It was so much fun.
Adding quest markers, okay? Making things easier to find. Making storylines less complex. In general, they started focusing on games having more content. The caveat being, the content was a lot more shallow. But hey, all right, more people could buy the game now. You cut to Skyrim, dude, you follow a waypoint, you kill 10 bears. Or if you're lucky, you can run through a Draugr dungeon that's completely identical to the last 7 that you ran through. Skyrim's not a bad game, disclaimer. I actually really like it. It's overhyped, yeah, but this is just an easy example of what I'm talking about. Don't even let me talk about Starfield. In short, developers will gut a game and make longtime die-hard fans quit so they can attract a newer, bigger audience.
Right.
It gets worse though, okay? Because an even more unfortunate thing, and don't tell Wall Street this, the economy, especially the gaming economy, has a very distinct ceiling. It's not infinite, right? Even if you make the best game in the world, you're gonna run out of people to buy it. So what are you to do, right? When you run out of people to buy your things, but you need to make more money so that Jeff Bezos can afford his 7th super yacht. It's simple. All you need to do is put more things in your game for people to spend.
No, Jeff Bezos is going bankrupt, guys. He's going bankrupt. He wrote me a letter and he said, can you please stop asking people to Twitch Prime? Because you are actually bankrupting me. Because every Twitch Prime that doesn't get used, Jeff Bezos gets to keep that money. But since we are asking people to use them, he started to lose a lot of money. He's actually started losing money. And he wrote me, he was like, can you please stop that? And I was like, no, I'm not going to stop. You're rich enough. Hashtag bankrupt Bezos. Hashtag one prime at a time. That's what we do over here.
Money on. This is where Horse Armor fucked it all up. DLC, battle passes, loot boxes. It's free money. Studios don't even have to ship a good product.
Let's go,
anymore.
boys.
They have to
we got
ship
2
a
primes
moderately
right there.
Functional product that can convince children to buy loot boxes and adults. I've spent thousands on CSGO skins. I am part of the problem. But they're also manipulating our psychology to do this, so don't feel bad.
3.
You're a victim. They milk the player base dry for useless cosmetics with shallow gameplay, and when that reality starts to set in for players, bam!
Dude, that song, that RuneScape song reminds me of Happy Days for so much.
New Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 2, World at War. It's the same thing, but they don't know that. It's genuinely insane. If you guys have been following the disaster that is the new Assassin's Creed, there was this leaked internal memo from the CEO of Ubisoft. So he's talking about how the game was delayed in this excerpt. He says, the unusual decision at such an advanced stage is motivated by our desire to offer an optimal experience from launch on all platforms and various PC configurations. Are you listening? Okay.
Watch RS to give you the prime.
To remove the small frictions we typically use to address in post-launch title updates. He says this out loud with a little bit of corporate doublespeak, granted. They ship games with bugs so that they can hit earlier deadlines and make more money by fixing.
This is the worst problem in video games today is early release. Early release is a scam. You're buying an unfinished game. You are paying to beta test. And they are calling it early release. It is the 2025 scam of the year. It is the worst thing. And everyone falls for it.
Fixing things post-launch because fuck you. You're going to buy it anyway. And it's sad, dude, because at this size, the gaming industry just feels so disconnected right now. It's as if
Buffalo, thank you for the gifted sub.
Just numbers on a spreadsheet to them, kowtowing to the almighty yet elusive gaming industry. And at some point, they lost sight of the fact that the economy is just an abstraction of actual human beings and their behaviors. You're not playing like a simulator. We're real people who like things and also sometimes do things. And so at the end of the day, what's happened now is that games appeal to the lowest common denominator. In an effort to make everybody like something, you end up with nobody loving it. We haven't even talked about RuneScape in 10 minutes.
Wait a second. That was Riz. Yeah, the more mainstream you try to go with the game, the less it appeals to just a niche group of people. So it's like, who are you making the game for? You can't make a game for everybody. That's good. That's good. That's Riz.
So I apologize, but this is something that I'm passionate about, and I promise it is very much related. You see, RuneScape has never been afraid of this. We have always had a strong game identity built by leaning into things that some people might not like, but others love. Besides RuneScape 3, which that exact thing happened to, they tried to turn it into World of Warcraft to make it more popular. Didn't work. But since the start of Old School, Jagex has taken very special care to keep the very difficult balance between identity and widespread appeal. We know that we're not for everybody, but we're not trying to be. We can still have a very healthy, strong community and grow naturally. Never to Call of Duty or World of Warcraft size maybe, but what we do have is one of the strongest communities in gaming that we got by keeping that identity strong. At some point down the line, perhaps we've lost the top 1% of purists, but for a net gain of 50% more players while keeping every existing player happy, that's a very solid trade, and most games fail to do that. The secret is in how they have managed to do that. And to spread some light on this topic, we're gonna have to talk about our second section here, which is the game design philosophy of Old School RuneScape. I say second section, but these are all very interwoven concepts, so there's probably gonna be some crossover. The beauty of RuneScape is in its utter simplicity. If you wanna do something, you just click on it. That's pretty much it. There's no hotbar, there's no abilities, we don't have cooldowns, we don't have classes. The basic gameplay of Old School is clicking things, right?
That's called the Scarred Veil. That's in the Stone Talon Mountains. Classic WoW. World PvP right here. This guy's getting ganked. Looks like a Rogue versus Warrior. Just right off the top. I mean, you guys probably knew that, but I'm just saying what everybody was thinking.
Got 23 skills in the game that you perform various actions in, such as mining a rock, cutting a tree, killing a monster. Every action gives you XP in a skill, and that skill levels up to 99. The higher your level, the more methods you get. You get new areas, new quests, new items. It's kind of like Cookie Clicker on steroids, if you guys ever played that. It sounds boring, okay? And for a lot of people, it is, even me sometimes. But at the highest level, this allows for some really creative interactions and encounters. This might sound like I'm wearing a tinfoil hat, but I consider RuneScape to be a cross between 3 games, okay? Starting off with World of Warcraft because it has a basic MMO framework. Counter-Strike is the second one because click accuracy is the biggest skill that you can have in this game, unlike really any other MMO.
Those are my 2 most games played ever, by the way. Is World of Warcraft and Counter-Strike.
And the third is Guitar Hero. Like, work with me on this.
And that's my least played game ever.
This one. The game operates
it's
in
rhythm.
0.6 seconds intervals, essentially at 100 BPM.
The rhythm thing is what I'm ass at.
That's the fundamental engine unit. So it's ultimately like a rhythm game in that regard. With all
Gamer
of
Mike,
these
thank you for the
together,
prime.
there are some fascinating patterns that emerge in a very natural feeling way. And I would say the biggest difference in the grand scheme of things in the MMO sector is the fact that RuneScape has no expansion packs. There's no seasons, there's no new max levels. Everything in the game is designed to be there and relevant forever.
Expansions was the start of WoW's downfall. True or false? I think it's true.
Which poses some balancing difficulty, sure, but I don't think this is either good or bad. It's just a very specific school of design philosophy. If you take a game like World of Warcraft, which that's going to be a common reference for me because I did a lot of heroic and mythic, whatever it was called, raiding back in Mists and Warlords. Those are my qualifications. They're pretty much like, hey guys, Michael Blizzard here, CEO of World of Warcraft. All the content before this expansion pack is worthless. You're gonna spend 1 to 2 weeks doing it to level up your character, and then you can play the game, right? You can grind the 4 dungeons and 2 raids for a year and a half. Have fun. You can even buy really high level characters. You can get heirloom.
That is exactly what WoW is. That is exactly what WoW is.
armor to speed up the leveling process. They're
Cruise
basically
ship, thank you for
full
the prime.
sending the idea here that all of the content is the current expansion, which I say somewhat condescendingly, but again, this is not inherently bad or good. These are two severely separate design philosophies. They both have their benefits, they both have their drawbacks. The WoW philosophy makes balancing a lot easier, absolutely. It helps keep content fresh, but it also can trivialize a lot of the content that you might find fun. It can force you to grind things that you don't necessarily like, and usually some form of time gating is necessary to keep everybody on a relatively even playing field and not burn out. Now, I know I'm simplifying things here, so bear with me. The permanence of content is also what heavily contributes to the identity of old school. If you know anything about RuneScape, you know that the grinds are notoriously long. Some skills take over 300 hours to get max level in. The average time to max a RuneScape account is like 3,000 to 5,000 hours. That's more time than most people put into gaming in general, much less a singular game. This is and has
3,000 to 5,000 hours. Wait. Quick math divided by 24. 208 days played. 200 days played. So 1 year of being online for 12 hours a day, essentially.
Has been probably the #1 deterrent for new players. It's very intimidating. If you hear that, there's a good chance you won't even pick up RuneScape. But the beauty of RuneScape is that max
Maybe
level
16
is
hours a day?
massive achievement. It's not even required to play the game to its fullest. Most people never max their account. A lot of people don't even max a single skill. Unlike WoW or other MMOs where you have to hit the level cap and then start playing, the gameplay in RuneScape starts as soon as you
got 42
spawn.
days right now.
Jagex has taken a lot of care to curate your experience to feel rewarding.
I got 42 days. Guys, I'm almost there. I'm almost 1/4 of the way to maxing my account. Would you guys say I'm 1/4 of the way? 17, 12, 1/4. If I get to 200 days played, I could be maxed. I'm almost done beating this game. Easy mode.
And smooth, unlocking new skilling methods and content and quests at a satisfying pace that does not feel forced. If you've ever played RuneScape at any point, you're going to be familiar with this experience, right? Say you log in and you want to do a quest today because it gives you a cool sword. Well, it looks like to start that quest, you're going to need a few mining levels to complete it. So let's go do some mining. Well, hold up. What is this? We got a clue scroll from mining? A little treasure map we can follow for some goodies? Oh, but to complete the clue scroll, you need to unlock a new area. That's an entirely different quest. Well, to do that quest, you need to get some thieving levels. But thieving is way more efficient if you unlock the rogue's outfit. So let's go do that. I'm gonna stop there, but I'm not exaggerating. Something like that can continue for dozens and dozens of steps. And you're having fun the whole way because it's such a natural progression. And those unlocks that you get are permanent and meaningful. Realistically, even if you've played as early as last year, the game's gonna feel very fresh right now because of the sheer amount of content they've added with the express goal of making the early and middle game a much more smooth progression curve.
Right.
As opposed to like the long, janky stair steps of progress. We're gonna save those for the later levels. And this is something that I've always felt RuneScape could do better at because the grinds are so long. So it's very refreshing to see them actually address this while maintaining the length of the grinds themselves, because as I said, this is such a core part of our game's identity. And that length also lends itself to another very unique facet of RuneScape, which is the complete lack of time-gated content. RuneScape can be picked up whenever you want, for however long you want, and that will never limit the content that you can do. Back when I played WoW, this is during Mists of Pandaria, there was a legendary piece of gear that every player could and should get. It was a cape. If you played back then, you remember. It was by far the best in slot. You couldn't really do high-level raids without it, but to get it, you needed a certain amount of currency in the game. Now that currency could only be gotten from doing raids, but raids can only be done once per week. So you could not just grind out this legendary item by sitting at your desk for 40 hours straight. You basically had to play and log on every week for 12 total, maybe more. It was like 3 to 4 months. This is not particularly fun in my...
I hate time-gated content. It took me so long to figure out that that was bad. I was so blind to it for so long that time-gated content equals bad. And the reason that they time-gate the content is because we will beat all of the content in a week if they let us. If they let us play as much as we wanted to, we would beat it all in a week and then quit. That's why they time-gate it. The reason that they time-gate it is because they want your sub to last for longer than a month. And I don't think that that's good game design anymore. It's just not good.
My opinion here, but it had to be done this way. Otherwise, you would complete all the content in like a week and the game would get stale very, very quickly. This is, in my opinion, one of the downfalls of expansion pack style MMOs. Time gating becomes somewhat of a necessity to prevent players from burning through all the content very quickly, and something about that just feels artificial. There were also world bosses in WoW, which is kind of a form of time gating. You have to be online in this specific place at this specific time, otherwise you lose out on the loot. Luckily, these were essentially worthless, but it kind of sucked if you had a real life and you had...
Bro, is Tasty Life, did he kind of like saw all of us coming over before it happened, huh? He's spitting facts. He saw something that we all didn't. He's a pioneer. He's a prophet. He's literally a seer, a druid, a wise one.
To schedule that around a video game. I've never played a game that had a fun world boss also. I'm not saying they don't exist, but it's so hard to do those correctly. And RuneScape very recently attempted to introduce a world boss. Jagex presented the concept of the boss Wrathmaw during our summer summit, which is essentially just a biannual event where they tease the content coming for the next couple quarters. This boss is on a spawn timer in only a few worlds 3 times per day. And the cherry on top is that the rewards were exactly like that time-gated currency I described from World of Warcraft. You needed a lot of it to upgrade a weapon. That was the goal of the boss. The math was like insane on their first projection. It would take like a year for a player to farm everything they needed for their own weapon. And the reception to this was understandably terrible. The core identity of RuneScape revolves around not having to do this. We don't want to be beholden to a schedule. We don't want to feel like we have to play at certain times lest we get punished for not. And the community made their voices heard during this, all right? They stood their ground. But this is where Jagex did some good work. I'll give him props. The developer communication with players is next level in RuneScape, and that's something that contributes very heavily to the success of this game. And I say that as someone who has been involved in many gaming communities across the years. Nobody does it like Jagex. You could speak with a developer like fairly easily over social media, Reddit, Twitter.
Yeah.
They're really active in a lot of the communities. They even fly out their employees to events like Twitch.
This is crazy. When was this video made? 11 months ago? He's saying every single thing that I say about the game now. And he says the exact same things that we didn't like about World of Warcraft. Like this, it's kind of crazy to see how well this video has held up and why it's kind of like recommending it to me now on YouTube. Maybe a lot of people are like feeling this same kind of sentiment. And this video is getting like even new life 11 months later because of how real it is according to like right now. And WoW is completely dead now. Like classic WoW is just dead. They're merging servers. They're trying to like save the damn game. Like, I don't even know. Like it can't be saved. They need to end mop. They need to merge all the classic servers back into white main. And then they need to just make classic plus. That's it. That's all they can do.
Which is where I personally met 2 J-mods. They're really cool guys. They also have a fantastic relationship with all their content creators. They include us in official promo videos for content. They sponsor community ran events. They commission us for work. Like Jagex has their finger on the pulse. And so all of this culminates in what is actually a very polarizing thing that Jagex does, which is polls. They release polls to the players to help decide the future of old school RuneScape. And if you remember, that's exactly how old school came into existence in the first place. This world boss I was talking about, Wrathmaw, they let it loose in the polls. It failed miserably. Shocker. So they went back to the drawing board. They started changing things around. They started talking to the community about
I have not voted
wanted,
at all yet.
and in general, just asking the player base to get a feel for how this should be, which is you never see that in game development at this level. It's very rare. Realistically, that Wrathmaw's never coming to the game, but that's the beauty of the polling system, right? The players vote for what we want and we control the future of the game. But I did say this was a controversial topic, and those of you more astute might have already guessed why. In general, people are stupid All right, myself included, we're self-interested, we're nearsighted, we're quite literally monkeys that evolved too fast. And so people tend to vote for things that only benefit them, even if it puts the greater game in a worse position. So sometimes we get deadlocked at polls, right? The ultra endgame die-hard RuneScape players actually tend to despise polls because they're a very small minority of the player base. So 90% of people who are voting are players who play the game for 2 hours a week, right? They think, oh cool, this idea would make the game.
This is an interesting topic. Who should be allowed to vote? And that answer is probably going to change drastically based on who you ask. 1,500 total, max cape onlys, max ultimate Ironmans. Oh God, 2K is too high. You count out too many people.
Easier for me, I'm gonna vote yes. And then there's the high level guy over in the corner freaking out because they feel like this would fundamentally change a core aspect of the game that made it great in the first place. Now, obviously, the truth is somewhere in the middle of that. Nobody has the privilege of deciding what is best for the game. You're a unique player with a unique viewpoint.
I really feel like I speak for RuneScape. So if you could direct all future development changes towards me first, I'll go ahead and give the ultimate say on what should go down. Okay, because I have 182 KC in the corrupted gauntlet. And that kind of makes me that guy.
You might be attracted to many of the things that make this game great, but that does not make your opinion more correct than someone else who prefers other aspects and maybe doesn't care much for what you like about RuneScape. The ugly truth here is that we need both types of players, right? We need Timmy Two Shoes from Reddit, who doesn't know what a game tick is and thinks that you should be able to trade in 10 fire capes for an infernal cape. RuneScape players get
It's so stupid. I'm sorry. That was funny, man. Turn in 10 fire capes for an infernal, bro. That is a terrible idea.
giggling at that one. We need them just as much as we need the sweat lords who eat, breathe, and sleep this game. We exist in a very delicate balance.
Showback ain't even got
us
one
insight
fire
into the portions of our game that are lacking or maybe off-putting to new players. The Giga nerds are there to say, hey, we want new players, but not at the cost of something that is so core to the most dedicated section of our player base. If we only have noobs, that means everybody quits at some point, and if we only have Giga sweats, that means nobody wants to pick up this game. In either scenario, the game dies. But I will say, I think RuneScape has really effectively utilized the polling system to find that balance. Because ultimately, it's not like the players get to decide every single thing. Ultimately, Jagex gets to choose what is or is not polled. So they steer the game. They're the invisible hand of God, if you will. Now, all of the things that I've talked about today are what make RuneScape such a powerful force in the modern gaming landscape. We know what we are. We like what we are, and we are willing to forego short-sighted, profit-driven design for the sake of community and longevity. Gamers, my name is Tasty Life. Thank you for watching, and stay tasty.
What a great video. What a great video. Guys, I'm really glad we watched that. That was one of my favorite videos I've seen in RuneScape so far, and that one was made 11 months ago. But it was so relevant to like everything that we talk about today and all the WoW players coming over and why we came over. And we're talking about why WoW has a bunch of problems earlier. And that one hit. That one hit. It still holds up.